right, I guess we'll give people a couple of minutes to just trickle in. But while we're waiting, welcome everyone to the follow-up session from CDS RADOS, which happened a couple of weeks ago. The aim of this meeting is to just go over the items we discussed at CDS and make sure we prioritize them based on what we think needs to be in Quincy and whatnot, and assemble the backlog in our Trello board. So in the interest of time, what we've done is that we've already created some Trello cards for the items that are there in the Etherpad. And there are also some items that have been there in specific, which just spilled over to Quincy. So we'll probably just go over the items in Etherpad first, make sure everything landed in the Trello board, and then also quickly go over the items in the Trello board, make sure all the labels look right. If does that sound good to everybody? Any other ideas?
Sounds good.
Cool, perfect. Okay, I think I'm just going to start. First of all, I've shared the Etherpad in the chat and also the backlog Trello. Maybe I can share my screen so that it becomes easier. I'm talking about. All right, can everybody see my screen? All right.
Yes.
Cool. So yeah, this is the RADOS section. The first item and the second item, the first one was about dashboard and RADOS, and there's detailed things that we want to do there, but I don't think there are any particular RADOS Trello cards required. Those required will be made by the dashboard team, and we figure out what needs to be done there. So I'll skip that. Next, also the crash telemetry panel stuff. Lots of improvements mentioned in the Etherpad. Nothing particular. I mean, we have one card here about mapping device errors and OSD crashes back to devices. That's a RADOS card that's been there, but I don't think there's anything specific that we want to create there as well. So moving on to the next item, which is about Bluestone split cache improvements. We did not go over this in detail in the last CDM session because of the availability of some of the Bluestone folks. But there's a detailed document about how we want to make these improvements, and we'll probably go over this in a performance call or something. For now, we have added this is in this. The link to the Etherpad is already there. Okay. So next item here is about immutable content optimizations. I think we collectively agreed that this is more suitable at the RGW layer versus at the RADOS layer. So we are also going to skip this one. Next, we come to manager improvements. So this one has a whole bunch of improvements, some short-term improvements, some longer-term, some also dealt by different components like dashboard and Prometheus and other things. So what we essentially have here, we have a bunch of improvements that we have mentioned here already. Things like improve progress module scalability is just about the progress module. Similarly, for insights, we have a separate card. And the entire Etherpad that we have is linked here. In general, I feel we have cards that capture some of the improvements that are mentioned in this. But I guess the idea will be some of the cards that are already there are more like short-term things that we are aiming to get done in Quincy. As we start ticking things as done, we'll be able to make more cards that we can probably target for Quincy or maybe even later. That was the general approach for this item on the list. Like as you can see, progress module, progress, and the insights stuff already has cards. The other thing which I think is going to come up next is about the common manager pool. So there is a pull request from Patrick that already addresses this. The idea is to be able to use the common SQLite database. So currently the plan is to be able to migrate the device health metrics pool. So in future, when Insights starts using a RADOS pool to store its data, we can also use the same pool. I think it's .manager that we decided to name it. So yeah, go ahead, Sage.
I was going to say we could just rename that pool and reuse it instead of creating a new one.
That's what we're doing.
I think that's
exactly what that does.
Okay.
That's what it does.
Got it.
That's exactly what it does. Yeah.
Cool.
There's a migration path involved. I think we also have upgrade tests to make sure that things work fine.
Perfect. Cool.
So I feel like this doesn't require a separate card for now. We already have the bare bones of what we need. All right. Next, there is this item about Autoscaler improvements. Here also work has already started happening. There is a PR from Junior that already came in. Start off old creation with one PG if the autoscale mode is on. But I guess we also have items here in general for Autoscaler. Like one is this: we decided that we will have separate Autoscaler profiles, and users can just select which profile they want to select based on what kind of workloads they are running or what the state of the cluster is. So that this card addresses that bit. And yeah, this is the main thing. This is what we attempted to address in Pacific. There were some rough edges, so it's still marked for Quincy. So if we address the other issues, this comes along with it. Hopefully more stable. Anything else on that item, or should keep going?
That's good.
Okay, so next item here is about cluster log messages going through Paxos. This is bad. So here, I think there are a couple of things that we discussed. One was about controlling the trimming rate in the monitors in a more adaptable fashion versus just statically choosing a value, which we were doing earlier. This PR has already merged, so that addresses one part of the problem. But I guess the other main issue was that we decided that we do not want to store all these flow request messages in the cluster log, and probably just direct it to the manager log and not store everything. Have like n number of updates that we store. So have card here in RADOS. So this addresses that problem. Will be both OSD and manager cluster logging, which will now go into the manager log, and we just limit the number of messages going in. I would also like to point out that there is one PR from the community that tries to tackle the same problem, but it just does it on top of the current machinery that we have. So I feel what we can do is we can also incorporate this change as a part of the bigger change that we are planning. Those are basically the three main things that we can address in Quincy. There's also things about storing things in a dumb way, and we should fix it. This will need a refactor from the log monitor. Yeah.
I had a card for that.
Okay, perfect. Well, yeah. These are things, and then there is.
Oh, the PG stat.
Yeah, we have a card. Yeah, that's a good idea. I did add a card for that.
Is that under RADOS?
Edit. It is under RADOS. It's hidden somewhere. So this one was a good idea. This needs to be.
Yeah, there we go.
Quincy. And so yeah, this was also a good idea. It's going to be really useful for debugging purposes. Makes sense. I think that covers everything in this week. Next on the list is structured conf files, and we've already merged a PR from Kifu that implements this, which is awesome. So hopefully we can get the rest of the items he has here as a part of Quincy. We've also put it in your auto-generate docs.
It's already there. I'll delete this. Sorry.
Yeah, it's already there. Okay, that brings us to this last item here, automated auth key rotation. We had a detailed discussion about this. Unfortunately, the source from where this requirement came in, there's lack of clarity on what is actually needed. So we hope to get more clarity from them maybe in a month or so. But if we do get clarity on that, it'll be a nice to have feature in Quincy. But I don't have any more details at the moment. We have a card for it under security. That's that. I think that with that we cover all the items we discussed at CDS specifically. Anything else you want to talk about, or we can now go through the Trello backlog and make sure everything is there.
Yeah, let's go to Trello.
Sounds good. So the first item here is the second part of the PG removal optimization. We've got a PR for it, and Igor is already working on it, so hopefully we can get that done. I think the format changes and stuff already went in, so we can technically even backport it at some point, but we'll see. I mean, I don't have a strong opinion. Next item is a broad item about Crimson. Essentially has a link to the Crimson Trello board, and we have very clearly outlined items there for Quincy. Then we've got a few items related to QoS. This is something we did not discuss particularly at CDS, but we have a lot of clarity around what we want to do and what is done. So there is snap trimming, scrub, and PG deletion that we want to address next as some of the background activities that mClock will also prioritize. Currently, it is prioritizing client I/O versus recovery and scrub to some extent, but there are things that need to be done. So if we get these done, we can essentially I think this covers everything. We don't require any of those manual sleep stuff that we have for all of these background operations. And the snap running, I don't think we've started work on, but PG deletion and scrub, we have ongoing work on that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so so we have identified at least the PG deletion and the scrub tuning part for which we'll come up with the test cases using CBT itself. So once we test using that, we can go ahead and fine tune as we find things.
Perfect.
So that's the plan. Yeah.
Perfect. And I would like to also mention that the aim with Quincy is to default to mClock scheduler. I already have a PR out for that. There are some testing issues that came up, so we might need to adjust some tests and stuff. But if everything goes well, we will go ahead with that change. So Quincy will default to mClock scheduler versus WPQ, which is the default at the moment. Then apart from the background activity stuff, we also have automate baseline measurements. So currently, the mClock scheduler requires us to feed in some data or some information about cluster performance or throughput. And that's a manual step at this moment. And we have some default values, but which may not hold for different kinds of clusters. So the idea is to be able to automate this step so that users can just run something and, or this can also be done like a background activity by the manager, and we automatically figure out what those values should be versus a manual step involved. So that I believe is going to be cool. And I think that's the only thing that's holding us from making everything, work out of the box at the moment. And yeah, the last item about QoS is all this that we talked about earlier was the background activity stuff. We also want to do QoS client versus client. And that is going to be kind of the final piece to make sure we have complete QoS in Ceph. Anything else we want to talk about? Sridhar, Sunny, anybody else have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think that covers the overall high-level stuff that we want to do.
Sounds good then.
Do we need something that covers sort of the user-facing part of this, like how users set QoS policies or how they can see that in the dashboard or monitor?
So yeah, I guess that we could have I don't think there's much integration with the dashboard, but in terms of how users can use it at the moment, we have detailed documentation, developer documentation and user-facing documentation from Sridhar, which is one part has merged, one is still under review. So we have the docs part of it, but it'd be really nice to have it as a part of the dashboard. And that's one thing I discussed with the dashboard team in CDS is currently what we have is mClock just has some profiles. So the default profile is going to prioritize client I/O, but it would be nice to give users the ability to just change that profile in the dashboard itself.
What about the calibration step? Like the doc PR that I saw a while back basically said run CBT.
Yeah,
and like typed in values into.
So this card is for that.
Oh, okay, there it is. Okay.
This automated baseline performance. This is the main manual step at this moment. So if we can get this done, that becomes automated as well.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah,
and I feel
the portion might become more relevant for the client versus client QoS. We haven't really gotten into the details there yet, but I think once we start talking about that, we can talk about like the monitoring and the UI aspects of it.
Yeah, I can see that this having an automated way to measure baseline performance can be useful in other ways as well, not just for QoS. If we have the hooks to just do it.
Yep.
Moving on, I think we already went over this card about limiting slow requests, so I'm going to skip this. So the next item is just a cleanup item, but I think it's again useful. The idea is that we have a whole bunch of asserts in the code, which are multi-condition asserts. So from debugging point of view, it's very difficult to understand. It's not obvious, let's just say that, to which assert was hit. So there is some extra work that developers need to do to be able to identify which assert code hit or the bug is about. So the idea is to separate them out and make them individual asserts so that it becomes easily identifiable. And this is a small item, so anybody looking for small things to start working on can pick this up. Then we've got this one about map device errors that I glossed over earlier. And I think there is Yarit added an Etherpad here, describes what the idea behind this is. So I guess it's just, go ahead.
I wonder if it's worth considering integrating the data that we have from the crashes. Now that we know that we do have I/O errors from devices. So I haven't looked into that too deeply, but maybe we can use this information as well. Sage, what do you think? Is this something, does it make sense? Or
I think it might depend on where we show it. I'm not sure if we've put much thought into that. Like my first guess would be the device LS screen that lists your devices should show like error count or error history or something. I don't know. And it could show crashes too if we wanted to do that. But it doesn't map as cleanly to device as it does to a daemon, so that may or may not make sense. But I think having I/O errors by device, also by pool, like if we can link it to a PG even, not just a device, that might also be helpful. You know which pool is seeing errors. I don't know. I think there are a couple different things here. And then I think once we have those stats aggregating somewhere, then we can have a set of like health alerts that trigger if.
Okay. Yeah. And we'll probably use the new methods to store this data as well. Okay.
Yeah, I remember one of the initial ideas was about we already have this metric numshad repaired that would and just exposing this at the manager level of the will be useful to begin with.
Yeah, like I keep noticing on the lab cluster, for example, that there are PGs that are doing a deep scrub repair. And I don't know why. Are they like seeing errors on the disks and they're repairing them? I don't know. But every time I look right now, there are 3 PGs repairing, for example.
Okay.
Should see that somewhere.
We should probably see this. Should be there. Yeah, I'll take a look to see what these values are, if these values are even reflecting any of the repairs we're doing.
Yeah.
But okay, I think time to move to the next topic. Okay, I think the last one we've already discussed, add slow request bit to PG stat. There are a whole lot of other items, like some marked with small, which be nice for somebody who wants to get introduced to RADOS or like even Ceph can start picking up, but we don't really have a target in mind for them. So I'm not going to go through all of these items. I'm going to move to store, monitor, and manager. So for Bluestone, we discussed the split cache improvements. There are a couple others. One is about make asserts unique per return value. So currently, when we assert, in some places in Bluestone, we just assert, but it's not clear why we asserted, as in the return value is not clear whether it was out of space or it was some sort of EIO. Making them explicit again helps with debuggability in general. So this is again marked with small for Bluestone. And then final item for Bluestone, this has been there for a bit. I think there are several other improvements that we are making in Pacific, because of which the cache age binning PR from Mark had to wait. But at this point, I believe all that stuff has already merged.
Yep.
Okay.
We can do this now. I think based on stuff that Adam wrapped up, and based on some of the other stuff that we've merged, it should be able to go in now.
Yeah, I think one of the main blockers was the column family sharding. So that's gone with Pacific. So and it's pretty stable. So we can start working on this again. All right, then coming to monitor. I guess this is something that Sage you just added about the log monitor stuff.
Yep, just a refactor.
Then there's this item about severity of degradedness in Ceph health. This is comes in from this. Sunny already started working on this at some point, but I think he got distracted by some of the QoS work he was focusing on. I guess let's go to the RFE. So the idea is to be able to display PGs. The example here is for EC in K plus N minus N for all quantities of health.
Yeah.
I mean, essentially, essentially, at what point do you make PGs inactive? So I think just having to know how many of them are in what state, just the breakup of how bad or how much time a PG would need to recover, breakup of that, making that more obvious to the user. Currently, it's just overall degradedness of the cluster that we show. So this is where this comes from.
Yeah, I will revive my work and.
Cool. And this item actually spilled from Pacific. I'm not sure what the status of this one is again.
I just tagged it to Quincy because it seems like a smallish item that we should get done.
Yeah, I guess the idea should we enforce SSD class. I mean, technically, it's just like something we assume or mandate that index pool should be. I guess there's no harm doing it though. All right, then we are already running over, so I'm just going to go through the manager ones real quick. We talked about, okay, there's a separate card for this. Perfect. That you added, Sage. Okay. So this is the one we can say it's merged now or not merged yet.
I think it's not merged.
Well, yeah, merged, will be merged soon. Then
Yeah, this is the next one.
Oh, that's merged, I guess.
No, it's the same PR. It's not quite merged yet.
Not quite merged yet. It's almost ready.
Okay. I'll delete mine then.
Then we've got this item about add a general manager functionality to store, retrieve data in RADOS. So this is essentially the same thing.
Yeah.
We talked about autoscaler profiles, insight scalability, autoscale, avoid scale down. Then we've got this one. I'm not sure again this one what the status is. Sage, do you know?
We'd have to check. I actually thought we might have already included this, but I'm not sure. Basically just include which multi-site RGW features being used in telemetry.
Okay.
I can't remember exactly what's there, but we should just refresh.
Yeah, I think we collect just how much, like we count them, but not more than that. And it goes together with the other card that we just need to find a good way of collecting new data from telemetry. So we will not break the flow of the user reporting because they need to re-opt in every time we add new data. So yeah. And it goes also with a card for the orchestrator data and practically all new data collected through telemetry. Yeah.
Okay. Makes sense. All right. Then the next card here is about capturing exceptions and crashes for the manager, similar to what we do for C++ crashes. I think this is going to be another thing. Doesn't need any more discussion here. Next, we've gotten this item from, I think this was also spilled over from Pacific. The implementation was not that trivial. The idea is to be able to use the actual OSD utilization for balancing PGs by the upmap balancer versus currently what we use is the number of PGs per OSD. There's a lot of discussion we have done around this. We all think this is a good idea. Getting it in that is left now.
Yeah.
Progress, improve scalability, we've discussed. Automated OSD reformatting, and we have a lot of use cases where this will be useful. That's this. Provisioning the.
Yep.
This is another thing we all agree is. Yeah, so next one is also something that fits in like a short-term improvement for manager scalability. Also fits in with some of the trimming work we did, making trimming more dynamic. So this manager stats period is again a static value. The idea is to be able to dynamically change this based on what the ingest rate is for the manager. And Brad has been working on this. Then there's this broad card about manager improve scalability, talked about. Telemetry, query shared data. Page, I see you added it.
Yeah, it's just making it so we can add new things to telemetry without sort of prompting people to turn telemetry off. That's what Gary mentioned a moment ago.
I think that's all. There's just one more small card about display detailed output for enabled modules, but yeah, I think this is another beginner card. We've got a couple of items here in Messenger for message async, compression on the wire.
We have a pull request for this, I think, an implementation.
Okay, there is a pull request linked here.
I found the list as maybe not being the most ideal thing, but it works, so might be fine.
This is the PR you were thinking, right?
Yeah. That's the point. I think we have to decide whether we want to move forward with this one or not. We can defer that probably.
Mm-hmm. And then there is this item that Jason added at some point about new RADOS libRPD offer as your reactor, so do something simple. Async messenger.
I would put this in the whole bucket of discussion about how we need to look at the object or implementation itself, as well as the messenger and reactor frameworks. Not sure. This came up a little bit during CDS, but it's not clear that it's likely that there's more work that needs to be done in the object or itself to actually run in the reactor framework. Right now it uses the ASIOS function calls, but it still uses its same RAD architecture. I think there's a whole planning discussion that needs to happen around this stuff before we have specific steps.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit early for this. It's probably not Quincy reveal.
Yeah.
Perhaps we could just discuss this at the CDM and figure out what the next step.
Yeah. Tag it.
Okay, that's
rotation. That's it.
Yeah, I think that's it. Anything else that I'm missing?
I don't think so.
No. Perfect. 8 minutes
There's
overtime, but I think it makes sense.
There's a perennial dedupe item, but I don't know if we have.
Yeah, that's
really
yeah, not the RADOS level, right, for the Quincy at least.
Yeah, for Quincy, yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Okay.
Okay. Cool. Thanks everyone for joining, and have a great day. See you later.
Thanks.
Thanks. See you.
Thanks, Neha.